Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. I am here with a VR to Rachelle over at Amethyst, Ascension, Tarot and Astrology, and her tag TarotTube 2026. I have no doubt if you're here on my channel that you have seen Rachelle's original videos creating this tag and a number of other VRs to it. As per usual, I am late to the VR party. I will link Rachelle's videos in the description box below. Her tag is created originally as two videos, a part one on kind of past and present of TarotTube, and a part two on TarotTube going forward and kind of what we want to bring to TarotTube going forward. I am possibly, against my better judgment, going to try to do both part one and part two all in this one video. If you are here, you know that I ramble and I'm not concise. So this may be something that turns into a very long video, but I still would like to make it as one. So that's what I'm going to do. There may be some weird cuts where my camera battery cuts out. We'll see what happens. I will timestamp below all of the questions and proceed to the first question. Without further ado, part one begins with the question, what originally drew you into the tarot community? I feel like I've probably told the story a few times, but I initially started watching TarotTube videos, as I think probably most of us who make videos originally started watching videos made by others. I didn't even have a YouTube account at the time. I found some channels that I enjoyed and I was watching deck reviews and instructional content and all kinds of things. And at some point I decided that I wanted to comment because I had something to say. And so it was really for TarotTube that I made a YouTube account. I came up with the handle Aquamarine18 at the time and started commenting on others' videos and chatting and, asking questions and all the things that one does in the comment section. And I started thinking about making videos. I think I knew that I wanted to make videos, but I was kind of talking myself out of it. I was very unsure at the time. And so I thought about it and I thought about it. And the final nudge came when I won a giveaway hosted by Kelly Bear for a copy of the Tarot of the Magical Forest, which she modified. And I was very excited. I don't tend to win prizes very often. I was very excited. And I knew that I wanted to film an unboxing to be able to say thank you properly and share my excitement. And so in the time that the parcel was in the mail, I kind of committed to doing that, and I filmed an introduction video, a brief one. And then I think it would be my second video ever posted was that unboxing of the prize. So that's how I became a tarot tuber who made their own videos. The second question is, what has being a part of TarotTube taught you about yourself? I feel like there's a lot of things that I could say here. I feel like I've probably learned a lot about myself in the time that I've been here as a result of being here. Two things, I guess, that come to mind. The first is that when it comes to conversations that we have here on TarotTube, I have an unique perspective worth sharing. I think that we all do. But really talking myself out of the idea that I did is what kept me from starting my channel. For the whole time that I'm thinking about whether I want to start a channel or not, whether I want to make videos or not, it was very much this internalized, you don't have, an interesting enough take on tarot to warrant a channel, or, you don't have enough to say to warrant a channel. That talking myself out of it. And having been here now for 7 years, I have unlearned that voice inside my brain that was telling me that I had nothing to say here. And I appreciate TarotTube for that. I would also say that what TarotTube has taught me about myself is that, you know, I mean, not that I wouldn't have figured this out without TarotTube, but I think TarotTube has taught me in a particular sort of a way that I have changed a lot. I will change a lot in future. I am not who I was in many respects 7 years ago or 6 years ago or 5 years ago. And I will be different meaningfully, you know, in the future. And none of that invalidates who I have been in the past, if that makes sense. I feel like there's something interesting about the fact that, you know, when you look at someone's YouTube channel, and this is kind of YouTube in general, not TarotTube only, but when you look at someone who's had a YouTube channel for a long time, or a number of years at least, you can watch something that they're saying, you know, that they said last week, and then you can watch something that they've said, you know, 5 years ago, perhaps 10 years ago, and you can experience those both in the present, right? You can watch someone's new video and someone's oldest video at the same time. And I feel like as a viewer, there's a sense that this, you know, this is the same person who's talking about this over here and this over here. But of course, that time passing, inevitably that person has changed a lot, right? And so I'm not being very articulate here, but being on TarotTube and being on TarotTube for the time that I have been, the number of years that I have been, I feel like has taught me a level of comfort with becoming, comfort with not being entirely consistent over time, comfort with, you know, the ways in which my identities have shifted over time, my perspectives have shifted over time, and being comfortable with leaving, you know, content up that reflects insights and thoughts and perspectives that I had at a time, even though it might not 100% reflect what I would say now. Of course it doesn't, right? And I'm very appreciative of that level of comfort that I have with that. And it's not something I've experienced in other places because I'm not on any other social media. And the other social media that I have been on in the past, I have neither stayed on as long as I have on YouTube, nor have I put as much of myself out there or been as active as I have been on YouTube. So it is a unique experience for me. The next question, third question, is what moments made you feel most connected? I would say, of course, any kind of moments where you get to engage more directly in real time, like lives or panels, or, you know, being in the live chat when other people are live. Things like that feel really connecting. I would also say that I feel like kind of part of a cohort in a way. I feel like back when I started TarotTube, there's a number of channels that also started kind of around the same time that were all kind of slowly building up in terms of subscriber base at the same time. And, you know, it's not that we haven't really necessarily all talked about that in any explicit way, but I feel connected to, you know, that cohort of channels with a similar kind of timeline to mine, who are still here. I feel like it's an interesting shared experience to have, and having been kind of VRing to each other, or, you know, having conversations about tarot over, you know, over such a period while all growing as tarot tubers together, has made me feel connected as well. I feel like, you know, certainly, and this is not on TarotTube specifically, but I've gotten to meet some TarotTube folks in person. I've gotten to, you know, socialize with some TarotTube folks in other contexts in terms of kind of having taken a tarot class with someone, or having decided to do a deck study with someone, things like that. And those kinds of interactions have built a sense of connectivity for me as well. The next question is, what lessons have helped you grow, even the uncomfortable ones? I would say one lesson that has helped me grow in a lot of ways, including outside of being on TarotTube, that, you know, it might feel kind of trivial, but I feel like learning the basics of being able to film and record and the very basics of editing. We know I don't do much editing. You know, and also learning a level of comfort on camera, on video specifically, that has kind of come naturally with doing this. Those lessons have really helped me grow and have helped me in my life. It was about a year after I had started my channel that I was told by my employer, universities at the time, that I was to finish out a semester online. You know, having never taught virtually before, having only taught in a physical classroom, you know, I needed to make, you know, this total shift, and so did many of us, you know, any of us doing that kind of work at the time, and, you know, do so amidst, you know, very difficult, you know, the beginnings of a very difficult collective trauma that was that time, and it is that time, right? We're still in it. So I feel like having that just basic ability to sit down in front of a camera and be able to, you know, intersperse some slides or some images, you know, up, you know, beside me, and be able to put, you know, clips together, these kinds of things. These are lessons that TarotTube gave me, or like the decision to be here on TarotTube gave me, but that allowed me to do my, you know, do my profession more effectively in ways that I never would have anticipated. None of us knew what we were doing at that point, you know. None of us had professional Zoom accounts until that point. We were not ready. How could we have been? But I feel like those skills really helped me. I had previously done radio, so I was comfortable with my voice. I was comfortable, you know, speaking, knowing that it would be listened to by an audience in that sense. And obviously I was comfortable lecturing in a lecture theater or speaking in front of a group. But I feel like camera comfort is different than that. You know, you can see yourself. So there's new ways to be directing scrutiny at yourself if you're not used to it. And so that, you know, yeah, was an uncomfortable lesson, but very, very helpful and ongoingly helpful in other contexts in my life. The other thing that I would say is a lesson that has helped me grow and is one that I'm very grateful for, is that I feel like it's TarotTube that has taught me that online friends are real friends. As cheesy as that sounds, I had never met a friend online until I started engaging with TarotTube at all. I, you know, again, have never been a really big social media person. I'm not really on anything else now. When I have been on other forms of social media, it's mostly been connecting with people that I already knew. I've never really connected with people in an online environment until being on TarotTube. And I don't think I would have disagreed before with the idea that an online friend was a real friend or could be a real friend, because obviously, you know, other people in my life have friends that they've met online, and it's not like it's an unfamiliar concept or something, but I hadn't experienced that firsthand. And I have now, with TarotTube, met folks who I believe and sincerely hope will be lifelong friends, whose friendship I value tremendously. So that's a lesson that, you know, that I have grown with, I would say. The next question, which is the last in part 1, is how does the tarot community feel to you right now? This one is a bit tricky. I, of course, watched Heather's VR, Heather of Suits and Shadows. And like her, I definitely experience, you know, tarot community here as, you know, more so kind of a bunch of little groups. She said, I would say kind of like little Venn diagrams all in a cluster, you know. And I feel like for me, in terms of tarot community, TarotTube community in kind of the big broad sense, I feel like I only really know and I'm connected to like the tiniest little corner of it. I obviously have channels that I'm subscribed to, you know, many channels that I subscribe to, some of which I watch more regularly and routinely than others. I have channels that I don't subscribe to. You know, I feel like there are whole areas of the tarot sphere here that I've had very little engagement with. There's always new folks coming in and starting channels as well, some of whom stick around, some of whom do not. And so at any given time, I feel like I'm not seeing, you know, seeing the totality, obviously. Really, like, how could you? I also, of course, am aware that my experience of tarot community and like the world in general is situated and is perspectival, right? My experience of tarot community is from my perspective, you know, as myself, with my channel, my kind of smallish channel, with my, you know, other channels that I subscribe to, with the people who comment on my channel, with the people whose channels I comment on. And, you know, I can't step outside of that situatedness and kind of look at TarotTube from some sort of objective bird's eye view, as if I'm not down in it, right? If that makes sense. So I feel like my impression of the tarot community is very incomplete. I know that there have been challenging dynamics in the context of the TarotTube community throughout the 7 years that I've been here and before, of course. There have been different kinds of issues and discussions and troublesome dynamics at times, of a range of kinds, you know. I feel like sometimes, you know, there's like conversation about drama. I don't like calling things like this drama because I think that it can sound trivializing of things that are often quite serious and quite painful. And I have, for the most part, only been peripherally even aware of these things, and never really in the middle of those dynamics so much. But I feel them. You know, I feel the ripple effects of that for sure, as I'm sure that we all do. And that has been somewhat of a constant, to be honest, in again the 7 years that I've been here. You know, I don't know that I would say that the TarotTube feels now really fundamentally different than it has at other times. It definitely feels bigger. I feel like when I started watching tarot YouTube, I was watching a couple of channels, and there were a few channels doing a few different things, and things have really, really grown in terms of the number of channels and the perspectives and the kinds of content. So it feels really big and really vast, and like something that I can only really ever be aware of and engaged in a small section of. Now, this is where part 2 of the questions starts, and I am just going to take a quick pause because I know that my camera is going to cut me off, and I will be back with part 2. I am back. The first question in part 2 of the TarotTube 2026 tag is, what kind of tarot content do you want to create in 2026? I feel like I've talked about this a little bit in the context of New Year's visioning and things like that, but I guess I would just say here that I want to create tarot content that I feel excited about making, that reflects what is most energizing and enjoyable and nourishing and informative and educational about my own tarot practice and my own tarot learning at any given time. I want to share my thoughts where I feel, inclined or called to do so. I want to participate in VRs to tags that I'm interested in. I want to really just enjoy being here. I don't want to restrict myself too much in terms of, thinking about what kinds of tarot content I want to create. Of course, we could think about that in terms of deck reviews or book reviews or spread examples or interviews or, unboxings or all of these kinds of things. I don't want to limit myself too much in that respect. I feel like I've enjoyed making lots of different kinds of content in that sense, and I don't suspect that will change too much. So I really just want to create tarot content that I have fun making. I'm also, I would say, open to suggestions. I say with no guarantees whatsoever. I do kind of keep a little list of things that people have asked me about or said, oh, I'd really like to hear your thoughts about this. And that has inspired some of my content at times. Of course, I want my channel to reflect me and my interests and my perspectives, but if there's ever a tag floating around or a deck that that I work with or anything like that you feel like you would really like to see something about, I'm always happy to think about those kinds of suggestions as well. The second question for part 2 is, what kind of tarot content do you want to watch more of? I would really just say that I want to watch more tarot content of the kinds of content I'm already watching. When I watch TarotTube or like YouTube in general, I will say, I'm very much bound to my subscriptions. When I go to YouTube with the intention of watching something, whether that's booktube content or TarotTube or whatever kind of thing that I'm interested in at the time, I go to my subscriptions page and just look at the chronological output of the channels that I'm subscribed to, minus the shorts, which I really have no interest in, and I pick something from there. I mean, obviously sometimes I go to YouTube and I'm looking for something very specific, like maybe a walkthrough of a specific deck or some, instructional content about a particular kind of task or something. But if I'm just sitting down because I want to watch TarotTube, I'm on my subscriptions page. And so I feel like I'm fairly intentional in what I watch. I do have pretty finite time. I'm not one who just kind of scrolls randomly and goes through kind of algorithmic suggestions so much. So I just want to watch more tarot content that I am interested in, at any given time. I will just mention, though, that in saying that I'm always looking at my own subscriptions page, that's not to say that I'm not interested in new channels, right? If you've made a tarot channel and you're newer to TarotTube, please don't hesitate to introduce yourself. I'm adding to my subscriptions all the time. I don't mean that to sound like I'm just uninterested in going outside of my usual viewing in terms of channels or anything like that. Just that I'm not one to really randomly browse. So, yeah. And again, in terms of types of content, like walkthroughs or reviews or unboxings or deck reviews and all of these kinds of things, I'm not going to limit myself here either in terms of what kind of content I want to watch more of. I like all kinds of things and feel inclined towards watching different things at different times. So just more of whatever draws me in, really. The next question for part 2 is, what kinds of tarot content are you ready to disengage from? I would say somewhat similarly, this is a hard question to answer because I feel like if I wanted to disengage from something, I just wouldn't be watching it already. There's no type of tarot content or TarotTube content that I'm currently watching a bunch of but really wish I wasn't, which I feel like is kind of what this question is asking. There's nothing that I've been watching that I don't want to be watching. I am pretty deliberate and intentional in what I'm spending my time on. So there's no specific kind of tarot content that I want to disengage from. The fourth question in part 2 is, what values matter most to you in a tarot community? I think that it's hard for me to say that there are values that would matter to me in a tarot community that aren't just values that matter to me in general, that would matter to me in any kind of space, whether online or offline, that I might be participating in. You know, I have values that are important to me that I try to find ways of aligning with and expressing and acting from in whatever kind of context I find myself in. And I think, or at least I hope, that anyone who's been watching my channel for any length of time would probably be able to tell, you know, what some of those values are. I value inclusiveness. I value equity. I value diversity. I value, celebrating those things, right? I think that is reflected in the content that I create, whether that be about books about tarot or anything else. I sincerely hope that it is. I value making room for nuance and complexity and complication and messiness. I joke about, how much I can ramble in response to things, but I think that kind of reflects that I do place importance on acknowledging complexities of things, For me, a lot of questions that come up in tags or conversations, things like this, might feel, really straightforward or something, at first glance, but there's so often, all kinds of different dimensions and directions to take things in. And I think that, sometimes that's something that algorithms don't like, because it's not tidy and clippable into kind of snappy little excerpts, in ways that I think are rewarded by algorithms in all kinds of contexts. But I value taking the time, to hear each other, taking the time to, be together in good ways, in any community that I'm a part of. I value solidarity and mutual aid and support and generosity, and I try to bring that as well, generosity of spirit and with time and, mutual support. And of course, many more things as well. I feel like values is a topic that warrants its own video. It's hard to encapsulate in a short answer, which I'm trying my best to do for this tag. The next question for part 2 is, what boundaries feel important for you as a creator or as a viewer? I feel like I am interested in, as much as possible while I am here on TarotTube, cultivating a safer space and experience for myself, certainly, but also for others who are, coming to my channel as viewers or as commenters. And so in terms of boundaries, what that has looked like for me is that, if I feel like I need to unsubscribe from someone, then I do. If I'm experiencing, a particular creator or their content as espousing discriminatory or hateful ideas, for example, unsubscribe. That is a boundary that I'm just not interested, not interested. And as a creator here, I do read every single comment that I get. You know, at minimum, I try to, respond in some way, even if it's just, a heart, but I try to like type a response at very least. And none of them are with the fucking AI generated shit. If you get a comment back, it is from me. And reading all those comments, it's an important boundary for me that if someone is here, on my channel, on my video, below my talking face, making comments that are hateful, making comments that make my comment section unsafe for others, unwelcoming, delete, block, without a thought. No hesitation. I feel I feel in no way apologetic about that. I feel no way of needing to explain or justify that. I do not want my channel to be a place that people come and are subjected to that kind of bullshit, which many of us are subjected to in the world routinely. Absolutely not. So will block and delete. I would also say, and maybe this is a value more than a boundary, but accountability matters to me. It hasn't come up too often, but occasionally I've received a message from someone, expressing concern about something that I've said, or, hey, you've shown this like deck or book or whatever it is on your channel, and like, did you know there's some, perhaps problematics, associated with that you may not be aware of? Here it is. I'm very open to that. And I really appreciate and I'm grateful for that. And I appreciate how difficult it can be, to message someone that you see on the internet with that kind of feedback or that kind of information. But it is important to me to receive that, because that also then can inform how I navigate those boundaries of trying to create positive spaces for people on my channel, in my comments, who I'm engaging with here. And yeah. Those are important boundaries for me, for sure. The next question, which is the second last question, is how do you want tarot to feel in your life moving forward? I would say that I want tarot in my life to feel like it feels now, as part of a practice that feels supportive and well-rounded and inspiring and helpful to me in my day-to-day life. I want tarot to feel like something that enriches my life and my perspective as I engage with it. I want tarot to be a passion. And that is very much how it feels in my life now. It's how it's felt for a very long time. I've said before in other videos that, my tarot tubing slumps, when I have gone for longer periods without being here, do not reflect tarot slumps in terms of my personal practice at all. My tarot practice is a joy, and I want it to continue to be a joy and a source of inspiration and support moving forward for myself, and also to feel like a tool and a skill set that I can maybe, at times when I'm invited to use in a way that is supportive of others, or informative for others, or useful to others who I read for, in one way or another. Finally, the last question is, what kind of energy do you want to bring into the tarot community in 2026? And I feel like there's lots I could say here, by way of conclusion, but I think in terms of, my own channel and myself personally and what I'm bringing here, I would like to be able to bring more spontaneity to my channel. I feel like I can sometimes get an idea for a video and then, sit on it for so long and perhaps overthink it so much that it that it then ends up feeling stale and unexciting, and I don't end up making it. I don't, I wouldn't say that I overplan the videos that I do make. I don't script anything. A lot of time for tags like this, I'll read the questions ahead of time, of course, to make sure that I don't need to gather decks to show or things like that, but I don't tend to kind of write out answers or anything like that. But I feel like I can be not spontaneous in the ways that I would like to be in terms of putting out videos and sharing my thoughts and my ideas as they come to me and as I am most excited about them. So I would like to bring a spontaneous, rambly energy to TarotTube in 2026. And maybe just more of the same. I'm, as some folks know, because I've mentioned it here, I have struggled with, whether and to what extent I've wanted to be on TarotTube, what extent I've wanted to stay here. I've never thought about deleting my channel or deleting all the old content, but I have definitely thought about stepping away. And right now I am committed to being here. And so I want to bring intentionality to the ways that I do that. And I want to bring my love and appreciation of tarot and of other things that I talk about on this channel to TarotTube in 2026 and beyond. Thank you so much to Rachelle for starting this tag. It's one that I've really enjoyed thinking about and engaging with. And thank you to folks who've been sharing VRs. I'm looking forward to watching more of them. And thank you to you for watching. Share some thoughts in the comments. I'm happy to chat tarot anytime. And I will see you all again soon.